And we bought $250 million of Bitcoin August 10th, 2020. And then September, we bought another $75 million of Bitcoin or something like that. And then we started buying Bitcoin more in December, and we kept buying Bitcoin. We ended up buying nearly $4 billion. MicroStrategy's just bought as much Bitcoin as we get our hands on since August 10th of 2020. And in that time period, stocks gyrated north, they gyrated south, currencies have changed. So let me tell you what's happened. MicroStrategy stock, our stock is up 94% since that day. Bitcoin is up 77% since that day. The S&P index is up about 18%. The NASDAQ index is up 7.5%. Gold is down 16%. And silver, if you think silver was better than gold, it's down 32%. Jeez. Now, if you go on and say, okay, well, fine, let's just buy big tech. If you had bought the greatest of the big tech companies is Google. Google is up 41%. Apple is up 39%. Microsoft's up 22%. You might have won. Those were all better investments than the S&P. Much better than NASDAQ. Much better than gold. Not as good as Bitcoin. Not as good as MicroStrategy. If you bought Amazon, you're down 18%. That was overvalued in the summer of 2020. A bunch of 20-somethings were just buying Amazon because they thought, well, we're all ordering Amazon stuff, so it must be good. Well, when you buy something that everybody else understands to be good at the same time they all agree with you, it's normally bad. Facebook is down 41% since then. Netflix is down 54%. So half the big tech got shellacked. The other half did pretty good. So summary for us, MicroStrategy's strategy was buy as much Bitcoin as you can and buy it with equity and debt. We borrowed money. We borrowed $2.2 billion at a blended interest rate of like 2% or 1.8%. So we borrowed cheap money while money was cheap, and we bought Bitcoin. Now people are saying, that's stupid because Bitcoin was trading up and then it traded down. At the end of the day, if your time horizon is a decade or longer, if you can borrow the money for longer than 5 or 6 years and you can hold it through the volatility, then raising cheap money, grabbing billions of dollars at low interest, and then investing in a scarce, desirable asset that's got sort of a technology appeal and holding it for a long period of time, that's going to be a good strategy. That's why our stock is outperforming Bitcoin. That's why we're outperforming all the enterprise software companies, all the big tech companies. And the reason Bitcoin's outperforming all the other asset classes is because it's scarce, it's desirable, it's technical. No one's going to write a piece of software to make gold better. You're not going to put gold on a billion iPhones. Whereas Lightning is a protocol that's been rolling out lately. Square Cash App or blocked Cash App put Lightning right into Cash App. It means that you can send $100 of Bitcoin to anybody in the world on a Saturday afternoon for less than a penny, instantly, peer-to-peer. If you're an entrepreneur or you're an investor, you have to have a 10-year time horizon. And nothing great is accomplished without a decade. If you look at Microsoft, the company's founded in the mid-70s, a decade later in their mid-80s, If you're not willing to hold Microsoft stock for a decade, you probably didn't get to the point where they came public. So a decade's a short period of time for someone who's an industrialist or an investor. I mean, Warren Buffett still owns Coca-Cola stock, and he must have bought it 50 years ago, right? Anybody that's a billionaire, right? All of these names, the Sergey Brins, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musks of the world, they didn't get there without holding an asset that had technical potential for a decade or longer. There's no get-rich-quick scheme. So I think that people want an easy route. If you're trying to get a quick win with no volatility, with no risk, doesn't make sense. And if you're actually trying to be successful in a hurry with volatility, that probably still won't work either. I mean, ultimately, success comes from taking a decade-long view, right? Andrew Mellon, John D. Rockefeller, Jeff Bezos, right? We forget, like, Tesla was founded 20 years ago. People think it's an overnight success, but it's not an overnight success. And with regard to the macro picture, we live in a time of unprecedented public intervention in the affairs of the economy, right? Unprecedented. We never in the history of the country Did you have a government that told you couldn't have Thanksgiving dinner with your family because they didn't want family members to sit too close to each other? Everybody's got to make their decision. The lucky thing is you have an option. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you didn't have an option to move all of your wealth onto a crypto asset network. And what Bitcoin represents is hope. It's hope for a refugee that's going to flee a hostile regime, a hostile banking system, a hostile environment. And for people that are rich in the Western world, it's just an investment option for them until they get sensitized to this issue. And the more you get sensitized, then you start to realize that it's a moral imperative, even if not for you. Maybe you're rich and safe. It's a moral imperative for you to support it for them, for people that are in Africa or South America or fleeing from a war zone or fleeing from a hostile regime that's going to confiscate 20, 30, 40% of their property every year forever. So even if you don't think you need it in order to protect your family for the next 30 years, it seems to me like you might want to support it just because it's the right thing for humanity. And that's where I come down on this situation.